Hello viewers and welcome to yet another Warhammer 40,000 Conquest video production. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today I'm pleased to present a single, albeit intriguing, new card spoiler from our upcoming Planetfall Cycle War Pack, Boundless Hate. This card was recently unveiled during the 25th episode of the First Planet podcast, so a tremendous thanks to not just Fantasy Flight Games for providing our community with this exciting new preview, but kudos to co-hosts Scott Armstrong and Brian Ruptash as well for providing me with the image I'll be using in this video today. But with that covered, here's an introduction to and my initial impressions of the Dire Avenger Exarch. This is an Eldar faction army unit with a cost of 3 resources, 1 command icon, a loyal icon, an attack value of 2, and 4 total hit points. It has the warrior trait and reads, a warrior unit you control at this planet must be declared as a defender if able. So, Dire Avengers are Eldar aspect warriors, which specifically follow the path of the warrior. And in fact, Dire Avenger Exarchs in particular have dedicated so much training to and accumulated so much experience along this path that they're no longer able to divert from it to study any other. In general, Dire Avengers wield weapons of Eldar craftsmanship called shuriken catapults, which fire volleys of monomolecular blades capable of shredding most opposition to ribbons. They wear skin-tight, armored, and psychically active bodysuits, are adept in hand-to-hand combat, and in battle, Exarchs, as the paragons of and leaders among Dire Avengers, typically either wield 1 or 2 full-size shuriken catapults with a prodigious level of skill, or otherwise fight with a variety of power weapons, such as the polearm or spear depicted in our card art, with or without a shimmer shield, which provides a personal bulwark sufficiently formidable to the point that it can extend to protect nearby warriors in addition to its wielder. But regarding our spoiled card, this unit has quite reasonable statistics and has a rather formidable body for an Eldar faction army. If you're interested purely in offense, this is by no means the ideal unit, because if you're looking solely to do damage, you could simply flip those stats, add the Armorbane keyword, and purchase instead the equivalently cost drone trait Iyanden Wraithguard. Or, if you're in pursuit of an appealing mix of those characteristics, it's hard to go wrong with an in-faction Warlock Destructor, because it not only contributes just as much to winning you cards and resources during the command phase, and happens to be equally durable relative to our Dire Avenger Exarch, but it manages to hit even harder from possessing an additional point of printed attack value, and all of that comes at the cost of 1 fewer resource, despite that volitional deploy phase upkeep. But clearly, the primary appeal of our Exarch is in its ability. When your opponent decides to use a combat turn to attack, they declare their attacker and they declare a defender. While this unit is at a planet, your opponent must select a warrior trait unit as the target of their attack. So, clearly, the Dire Avenger Exarch itself is a warrior, and therefore he draws fire away from your far more vulnerable units. For instance, the 4 attack value, 2 hit point experimental Devilfish, should you be allied with Tau, can be fairly safely involved in combat, knowing full well that your opponent will have to chew through at least this unit prior to their declaring an attack against other eligible, far more readily destructible targets. Plus, it's very important to consider that your Dire Avenger Exarch need not be ready in order for you to benefit from its ability. Therefore, you can attack with this unit, and then, instead of your opponent being able to kill off one of your still ready units, and therefore minimize your amount of outgoing damage, they're instead forced to direct all available attack-relevant firepower at this unit, or any other present warrior. And should the Dire Avenger Exarch be swept up into your HQ, having been routed or simply survived battle at a planet, it can be sent to a subsequent planet alongside your warlord and there continue to serve as a reliable attack magnet, so long as it remains alive, present, and so long as its text box remains unblanked. So, while you could use this unit to send your bloodied warlord into combat as a reasonable bit of insurance that you're unlikely to have your unit destroyed, an enemy Squigify or Inquisitorial Fortress or any number of other card effects could all immediately serve to punish your attempts at cleverness and duplicity. But if you do have your Dire Avenger Exarch positioned at a planet, attempting to protect and preserve your more offense specialist high damage output units, remember that any warrior trait units you control at the Exarch's planet are perfectly eligible targets for enemy attacks. And therefore, the warlord this loyal Eldar faction army unit presumably works worst with is Baharoth, as both he and his signature Hawks happen to possess the warrior trait themselves. Plus, it's worth noting that other commonly seen Eldar faction deck inclusions include warrior trait units, such as our unique Autarch Salakia, which, as a very expensive unit, is a damn shame you won't be able to protect, as well as others, such as the economy-bolstering Bealtan Guardians and the equally durable Black Guardians. Still, regarding our ever-popular faction-specific units, which each happen to receive a +2 attack value bonus when a warlord is present, note that while the 3-cost Eldar Eldritch Corsair is a warrior, the 2-cost Tau faction Borkon recruits are instead only soldiers, and therefore they're yet another instance of a 4 attack value unit, like the aforementioned experimental Devilfish and Iyanden Wraithguard, which could dole out tremendous amounts of damage while benefiting from the relative safety granted by the Dire Avenger Exarch. But do note that any kind of non-attack card effect circumvents this ability entirely, as direct damage through unit abilities, events, area effect, and supports will all have no problem eliminating or otherwise removing your problematic and most threatening units. But consider also that common economy building units such as the Incubus Warrior, with its alluring 2 command icons but 1 printed hit point, are an extraordinarily frail warrior, and so too are the 2 hit point, 2 command icon Slith Mercenaries. This unit might be interested when combined with the Silvered Blade Avengers, because although that unit costs 4 resources, it's still another 4 hit point warrior trait unit that, upon being declared as an attacker, allows you to exhaust its non-warlord target, and that ability, plus your offense-focused units being able to kill off remaining unexhausted and presumably fragile enemy targets, so long as you can afford all these formidable defenders in addition to still managing to fund at least some significant offense, could make for a pretty reasonable combo. All the same, the Dire Avenger Exarch is undoubtedly going to be at its utmost best when played alongside our upcoming 3rd Eldar faction warlord, Taliesin Farinal, an Autarch and Samehan trait warlord whose premise, once released in our Planetfall Cycle Warpack 6, is going to be all about getting warriors and Psyker trait units to fight alongside one another. She grants +1 HP to any Psyker or warrior in her presence, and should you possess both kinds of units at at that planet, those same individuals also receive an additional +1 attack value. So, not only do Dire Avenger Exarchs draw enemy fire away from such a fragile yet invaluable warlord, but they also allow you to capitalize as much as possible upon her enormously powerful ability. For instance, not only do you keep her hail when in battle alongside an Exarch, but you also prevent enemies from targeting the Psyker trait signature Taliesin's Warlocks with attacks, and that unit, in the presence of Taliesin and the Exarch itself, can not only attack for a total of 4, albeit at the cost of 3 resources, but they can do so twice per combat round, provided you have ample warrior trait cards to discard from hand. And of course, when fighting with Taliesin, the Dire Avenger Exarch itself can attack for 3 with the assistance of a Psyker and has a whopping 5 hit points regardless, making it potentially an extraordinarily dangerous and exceptionally durable unit. And if your opponent finally manages to kill off this army unit, considering that you can merely return it to play thanks to a timely gift of Isha, this relatively subtle ability, I feel, will nevertheless translate to an enormous headache for your opponent, and overall, I think that the Dire Avenger Exarch could well see a place in a tremendous number of eventual decks. So, be sure to let me know in the comments what your own opinion is of our latest exciting news spoiler. But now that we've covered our upcoming Boundless Hate card, I'll just conclude this video by saying thank you once again to Fantasy Flight Games for providing our community with this preview, and of course a well-deserved thanks to Scott Armstrong and Brian Ruptash of the First Planet podcast for granting me the image I used in this video. Again, be sure to share your personal opinion and sentiments regarding this upcoming card in the comments, and as always, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already, or if you are already subscribed, you're always encouraged to share this content, as the more viewers there are that happen upon these videos, the more individuals may experience Conquest, like what they see, join our community, and together we all send the message to Fantasy Flight Games to continue to support this fantastic product. If at any point you'd like to get in touch with me, you're encouraged to do so on Facebook or on Twitter, and if you ever feel so inclined to help support the Hive Tyrant, I would be honored and humbled were you to donate to my Patreon. But once again, thank you so much for watching, and as always, be sure to check back in again soon for much more Conquest LCG content to come.